Well, I want to start with a question. How many of you have thought about your place in history? Have taken an accounting of your actions and their impact on events? Or to the matter of degree that you could shift the currents one way or the other. Now, I never really thought about history until I was literally drop-kicked into my future. I had my life all planned. I was going to paint Western landscapes, I was going to ride the rodeo circuit, and I was going to live on a ranch. And that was it. But divine choreography has a way of intervening. And one day I was looking at the local paper, and there was a huge clear cut that was proposed for an area called Needle Creek. Needle Creek was an area that was so beautiful and nestled up to our ranch. And it was something that I spent my honeymoon there, and I also went there to retreat into nature and the genius of nature. I could watch it unfold. So according to the Forest Service, this was a done deal, and in 30 days, it was going to be started. So with a little bit of inspiration, desperation, and insanity, I challenged the forest supervisor to a public debate. And to my horror, he actually accepted. And so it was held in the high school gym. It was filled to the rafters, and surprising to me more than anybody else, I won hands down. So what happened next is that project came to light. It was an environmental disaster. Nobody knew anything about it. It came to light, and this area has not been logged to this day. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because it changed my life. I went from cowboy boots to high heels, walking the halls of Congress, totally immersed and learning about the democratic system. And I found out that we can have a tremendous impact in a pluralistic system. So I decided at that point that I wanted to work for those that had no voice, for the wilderness, for the wild ones, and for the genetic archives of the planet. So I went to Alaska, 100 million acres of wild frontier that we got protected. And I went to the Tachinchinny River in Canada, and South America, Tierra del Fuego, to protect thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres of ancient forest. And then to the South Seas to help establish a marine sanctuary. And after that, the Grand Canyon, threatened by dams. And I found myself in Africa, in the center of the coalition that was fighting elephant poaching. And then deep into the Brazilian rainforest. At home, I was working on the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, Wild and Scenic Rivers, all historical pieces of legislation that set the foundation in this country for environmental vigilance and action. But it became evident to me that as important as this work was on each area, is that something was very wrong. Something was building in the atmosphere that was affecting everything that I cared about. And what it was greenhouse gases, and the planet was warming up. Right now, CO2 is 40% higher than it was in pre-industrial times. So the Earth is heated up 1 degree. There's a second degree already in the system that if we all decided right now to stop all our emissions, it would still happen. And what we do now, I'll say one other thing. Scientists, business as usual, we could go 8 to 9 degrees warmer than we are now with business as usual. So what we do the choices that we make now are going to determine the future for next generations and the fate of our planet. It became clear to me that no person, no place, no species, no corporation is going to be spared from the climate experience. So we're scrambling. And what we're scrambling for, well, first of all, let me tell you about Colorado. In Colorado, we've lost 70% of our lodgepole pine to pine beetle. British Columbia has lost almost 100%, 33 million acres. By 2013, they will have lost 80% of their pine forests. So we're scrambling. And we're trying to find alternative energies, and we're trying to find, or technologies, and renewable energies. And this is what we should be doing. However, we have this kind of supernatural faith in technology. And we're also operating under what I believe is a false and a potentially deadly assumption. And that is that we can continue our love affair with materialism and consume at the pace we're consuming and populate at the rate we are populating. And all we need is clean energy to support it. To give you a little perspective, it would take 5 to 6 Earths, with the resources we have on this Earth, 5 to 6 Earths, for the world's population to consume at the present rate of America. If I've learned anything from my experiences, it is that we have a choice. We have a choice to destroy ourselves. We can do it in one afternoon with nuclear weapons, or we can wait, have it happen over a few years with climate change, or we can choose another course. Is common sense going to be enough? No grass. Grass no good upside down. This was a Pawnee chief that was watching the white settlers turning under the prairie and seeing the soil blow away. And so what I think is happening is that we need to think in a different voice. What's the real cause of climate change? It's not greenhouse gases. That is a symptom. What's causing the root cause of climate change, I believe, is an absence of the sacred, a reverential relationship to the genius of nature that sustains our very lives and our well-being. Along the way, somehow we, either through arrogance or ignorance, we severed ourselves from our original knowledge about our place in the web of life. A shaman told me not too many years ago that indigenous peoples, a lot of indigenous people have the same word for self and place. They speak the language of the land, the soils, the water, the trees, the rivers. And she told me that without that language, you are without place. And you become eventually displaced. So what does it look like? What does an absence of the sacred look like? We allow offshore drilling, even though we've just experienced the worst disaster in the Gulf ever. We participate and we allow this plastic island, if you will, twice the size of Texas in our oceans. Our kids, we let our kids watch television or video games seven hours a day, as opposed to being outside, an average of 7 minutes. So we allow the Amazon and the great forests of the world to be felled so that we can have a cheap hamburger. and we promote and participate in a disposable society. What on earth are we leaving for our children? I learned in my travels that my family's very big. The two-leggeds, the four-leggeds, the forests, the waters. And Needle Creek taught me that democracy, that we have something right here under our noses in this country that is underutilized, that can be very effective in addressing the urgency of the climate crisis. It's called democracy. If you work democracy, democracy will work for you. Now, until now, America has led by example our great social movements. Civil rights, the women's movement, the environmental movement have written our history. There's a new movement that is surfacing. It's a confluence of rivers of voices of youth who are demanding that we take them into account, that our leaders act on the urgency of climate. I'm helping to guide this movement through the I Matter campaign, which is millions of youth who are around the world who are marching so that we can open our hearts and our eyes and our ears to them, that they matter, to the gravity of what's before us. They are trying to change the trajectory that we're on. They want to chart history. Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events, and in the total of those acts will be written the history of this generation. Political action is a personal matter. But I want to leave you with two questions. What is sacred to you? And what are you willing to do to defend it?